Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good night. Finally decided to get part 3 up, but it's also because it won the poll. But if anyone was rooting for any of the other games to be played, I will be streaming that tomorrow. I don't know what time, though, because I got something exciting to announce. Tonight will be the last night I will be streaming or recording videos with the current webcam and mic. Got all new equipment tonight, ordered it tonight, and apparently it's going to be here tomorrow. So I'll need some time tomorrow to set up the new equipment and make sure it is to my preferences. And new equipment starting tomorrow. New mic, new webcam. But yes, this is part 3 of my series of going over the RWBY series. I've already done volumes 1 through 3 and 4 through 6, so this will be 7 through 9. We're going to be talking about not only the RWBY volumes, but what was going on in the fandoms and all that at that time. Now, of course, I can't remember everything perfectly, because, this is going over several years of events. But it is just to go over, what I remember, how I perceive things going on from Volume 7 to Volume 9. There will be a Part 4 that will talk about, RWBY getting acquired by Viz and everything like that. Might be a little bit of a wait until we at least get more news about Volume 10 and where it is going to go. But yes, welcome on in. I'm going to start here in just a few moments. Make sure everything is going well. Make sure I can hear myself. Yep, everything is good. Alrighty, let's get this music turned off. I wish I could use RWBY music, but, copyrights and all that. Let's get that music turned off. Alrighty. Now, let's go to the Ever After. Boom. There we are. And let's get my beautiful mug up there. Hello. Hello, everybody. Starting a little later than I wanted to, but had to eat, had to rest a little bit after work, but hope everyone's having a good night. It's raining here, so it probably would have been a good night to do something spooky, with the rain and all that outside, but RWBY won the poll. So, yes. So, once again, like I said, this is part of a 4-part series. I've already done volumes 1 through 3 and 4 through 6. They are in the under where our live streams are. Normally, it's funny. I should have probably had Jess on all of these, but most of the time when I've recorded them, Jess has been at work. I usually do them when I'm off work, on a day off. But with the new equipment coming apparently tomorrow, I'm glad I decided to go ahead and do this tonight. So, if I forget anything that went on during this time of events, or if there's a particular moment from a volume that you would like me to talk about, please say so in chat. Because I say we've already got 4 people in, 4 to 6, somewhere around there. But yes, welcome. I know it's late. But I'll try and wrap up in an hour, if less than that. We'll see. I can only talk so much. So, in the last one, I talked about volumes 4 through 6 and how at that time the RWBY fandom had been, I think, permanently divided. I don't think the RWBY fandom has ever 100% come together ever since then. It's sadly always been a kind of us versus them ever since, even to this day. But despite all what happened during the hiatus between volume 6 and 7, I thought the fandom overall feeling was very positive going into 7. It was the start of a whole new arc, because it always seems like with RWBY, they always are separated into arcs depending on where they take place. There was the Beacon arc for volume 1 through 3. Some call it the Veil arc. There was 4 through 6, which was the Mistral arc. And then, of course, definitely 7 and 8 are the Atlas arc, and even though 9 takes place in the Ever After, I still count it as part of the Atlas arc because, for one, Team RWBY are still in their Atlas outfits in Volume 9. They're kind of recovering from the events of Atlas. The story of Atlas is kind of wrapped up in this story with Weiss remembering Atlas and the whole thing with John and Penny and all that. So yes, I do consider Volume 9 as part of the Atlas arc. So, of course, like, there was a lot of theories going into Volume 7 on what was going to happen. So we were going to be in Atlas. So, of course, we expected new outfits for the girls and for, you know, Jean, Ren, and Nora and all that. We expected, you know, what was actually going to be going on in Atlas, because we had already had small rumblings in the volumes before 7, between 3 and 7, that Ironwood was not doing well. That he had pretty much cut off a lot of things in Atlas, and there was already hints that he was becoming extremely paranoid. And that's kind of hinted of, I believe, in 6, when Tyrion says that if Ironwood comes to his senses and requests help from Vacuo, that would hurt their plans. So yes, they were already planting the seeds that all was not well with Ironwood. And I don't care what anyone says, Ironwood was not right. Okay, he was not right at all. I think even if they had told him the truth in Volume 8, I still think he would have lost it in the end, and it would have ended up the same. But really, and like, of course, we expect being Atlas, was Blake going to face any Faunus discrimination, because we have heard time and time again how Atlas treats the Faunus. What new characters we were going to see, all that. But really, the excitement for Volume 7 didn't start really until RTX, when we first got the artwork of the new outfits for Ruby, Weiss, Blake, and Yang. I remember everyone was excited that Ruby got the shonen protagonist hairstyle. Her hair had gotten spiky. That, you know, Weiss was going to have this amazing long braid. But I think the biggest talk was Blake's hair. Blake was cutting her long hair off and going with a cute little bob, which I know a lot of people miss long-haired Blake. I personally prefer short-haired Blake, but it is what it is. And of course, a lot of people were mixed on Yang's outfit. I personally loved the mechanic / aviator look. Like, I love the bomber jacket and everything like that. So I was happy with Yang's look. Also, Yang got a new upgrade to her arm, where it looks like her prosthetic technically now has a gauntlet of its own instead of it just being the prosthetic arm. And we knew that Jean was getting a haircut. Everybody called it the banana head. And then, of course, Ren and Nora getting new outfits. Crow getting a new outfit. It was exciting. And then the trailer came out, and we saw that Ironwood had this big bushy beard, this big black beard, that was to signal that probably not been sleeping well, probably at all, and things were getting bad. We had saw hints that it was pretty much martial law in Atlas. We were wondering where Winter stood on this. There was already hopes and guesses that Penny might be coming back and all that. And Volume 7 will always be special to me and Jess personally, because Volume 7 was the first volume where we started the channel and started reacting and covering RWBY. Fun fact, there's a reason why there is no reaction to Chapter 1 of Volume 7, and that's because the very first day that we were going to react, something happened to my computer that I was using at the time, and we had to cancel it, and we just watched the episode. And we started with Chapter 2 of Volume 7, which still bugs me to this day as a completionist. Me and Jess had started going back and rewatching the older volumes and reacting to them and putting them on the channel. We've only done Volume 1, sadly. When we were going to start Volume 2, that's when the shutdown happened and all of RWBY got taken off pretty much everywhere, so it's kind of impossible to do it right now. But we were going to end it with finally reacting to Volume 7, Chapter 1. So, yeah, to this day, that still really, really bugs me. But, the day Volume 7 aired, and I can't remember if the pandemic had happened yet, if we were at home by then. Because when we started the channel, I could have sworn that it was during the pandemic, when we were stuck at home. But I might be missing my timelines here, because that's been a good few number of years, and I've not gotten any younger, as you can tell. But I remember, of course, being Bumblebee shippers, we of course were wondering where was Blake and Yang's relationship going to go in Volume 7, because volumes 4 through 6 really did focus a lot on Blake and Yang. Were they going to take a back seat in Volume 7? Which, in a way, they kind of did. We all expected Weiss to definitely be the front runner of Volume 7, 8, and 9, because we all knew they were at least going to take place in Atlas. I know a lot of Weiss fans were happy with the content she got in the Atlas arc, and there are a lot that thinks it should have been more about her. But if you think about it, Weiss got a lot of development in 7 and 8. 9, a lot of people think she regressed because they kind of treated her as a comic relief character, which I think that was in a way of making more of a role reversal between her and RWBY, because RWBY was going through some stuff during Volume 9. Whereas Blake and Yang's story was kind of coming to its tipping point. So, yeah, there was a lot going on with the characters by the end of this arc. But I remember when Volume 7, the day it aired, didn't know what to expect. We know that their first stop was going to be Mantle because, Atlas being so highly protected and all that. We knew that they were going to have to go through there first. And this is, of course, would be the first volume with the new voice of Crow, and that alone was a point of contention among the fandom. I thought it was fine. I thought he does a great job. But I believe the first really big oh boy moment in Volume 7 is finally meeting Penny's father. Now, of course, he is based off of Geppetto, and you could definitely tell that with a lot of the bibs and bobs that he has in his office. But you just knew right away that's Penny's father. And then, of course, you suddenly realize that he realizes that it's Team RWBY he's talking to, and he recognizes Yang's arm and is like, "You painted it?" And it's because he's the one that more than likely built Yang's arm. I think saying more than likely is playing it safe, but I think he definitely made it. But before we can get the reveal of who he is, an alarm goes off, and of course Grimm are attacking the city. We of course got some cool fighting here, but then the big reveal, and I wished we had it on camera when we first watched Chapter 1 of Volume 7. Penny was back, and I remember being so happy. She definitely had some upgrades. She had longer hair, but there was always a fan theory of, would Penny remember RWBY? And that was quickly shown that, yes, she did. And of course, we learn that her core was taken from the Vital Tournament and just put into a new body. We didn't know until later about something else about Penny. But yeah, so like it was kind of always a given at that time that Penny would return because she is a robot that can be rebuilt. But would this Penny remember Ruby? Would Penny be programmed to be evil? There was always the theories on that. We also got introduced for the first time in Volume 7 to the Aesops, who in a way are kind of portrayed as a different, like, you could parallel them to Team RWBY in a lot of ways. Maybe not so much Clover, but the other four, because of how they see each other, how they perform as a team. And that's a little thing that goes on in this arc, is a little rivalry between the Aesops, not so much with Clover involved, but the other four members of the Aesops kind of forming a mini rivalry with Team RWBY. Of course, Clover's role is connected to Crow, and yes, I'll get into all that in a bit. But everything gets set up. Tyrion and Watts are there. Tyrion is still doing his serial killer thing, which is randomly killing people. That's what a serial killer does. And Watts being the brains behind Tyrion's madness, in a way. But yes, Team RWBY are arrested by the Aesops at the end of the first episode. Second episode, they're taken to Atlas Academy, where Ironwood is. Of course, that's where they're reunited with Ironwood and Winter, which they quickly have them released. And then, of course, that's where we learn what Ironwood's plan is, and that pretty much Team RWBY is going to be staying at Atlas Academy while they're there, because that's the whole point. It was them to get there and, protect the city, but also protect the Winter Maiden and the Relic. And of course, Ironwood learns that Oz is back inside Oscar, but after what happened in Volume 6, Ozpin is not talking to nobody. And so, as troublesome as Oz is as a character, I think if he had been around, it might have helped. But like I said, once Ironwood learned the truth, I don't think even Oz really could have done anything at that point. Like I said, I think if they had told him the truth right away, he would have lost it no matter what. Because you learn in these early episodes that is his goal, is to kill Salem. But by the end of that episode, we get you guys are going to need some new equipment. And that was the biggest hope that the fandom had. And the fandom expected it, but it was never promised. And I think Miles even later said that he doesn't know why people expected a shopping montage or a shopping episode, but that's what the fandom expected, and that's not what we got. We got a little, it wasn't a shopping montage, but it was a montage of them opening their new outfits and reacting to them. So we still got a montage, but they didn't go out shopping, okay, of course. But when they're open, you see reactions to it, and it alludes to Jean gonna cut his hair, because his hair is getting a little bit long. It's getting in his face. It shows him holding Pyrrha's scarf, which he still integrates into his new outfit. It shows everyone reacting to their new outfits. Blake runs her hand through her hair, signifying that she is going to get it cut. And that's one thing in Volume 7 that I was disappointed with. And that's the fact that Blake's haircut happened off screen. I was really hoping it would be that Legend of Korra and Mulan moment of shedding off the past and becoming a new person for Blake, but sadly it happened off screen. But this takes us into episode 3, which when it first aired, everyone thought Volume 7, Chapter 3 was one of the best episodes of RWBY yet. Because it gets the new outfit reveal. They jump out of the plane, they land, and they have this mission with the Aesops where the Aesops show off their skills as a experienced team. And it shows Team RWBY reacting to that. Now, I will say, we did get something in that episode that we had hoped we would get, but didn't know if they really would. And that is, of course, Yang reacting to Blake's haircut, where we finally got the first instance of full-on flirting between Blake and Yang. We had a little bit of it in the early volumes, but this was the beginning of them, being friends again, and then slowly getting to where they would be by Volume 9. But this is also where a little bit of separation begins, where Yang is like, are we really not going to tell Ironwood anything? But in the end, they do agree that they really don't know who they can trust right now, and they best keep their secrets to themselves for right now until they know it's okay. So of course, they go into the dust mine, where we kind of get some relations to Blake knowing that it's the mine where the accident happened that killed Ilya's parents. But other than that, we really don't get anything else on that. But yes, Volume 7, Chapter 3 is a very good episode. For a lot of people, 7, kind of after that, is kind of an okay volume until we get toward the end. But it's got a lot of great moments. It's got like Nora wanting to be best friends with Elm and wanting to call themselves their pairing Thunder Thighs, which had been brought up once in RWBY Chibi about Nora helping the others work out and saying that they needed Thunder Thighs. So they made that canon in a way. But episode 4, I believe, is where we learned that the Aesops do not see themselves as a team. Well, they don't see each other as friends. They see each other as colleagues, co-workers. That's about it. They don't party and hang out together outside of work, pretty much. But then also we have the story of what else is going on in Atlas, and that is the election for a seat on the council between Robin Hill, who is the equivalent to Robin Hood in the RWBY world, and Jacques Schnee, Weiss's father. And of course, he shows up, and we get finally a little interaction between him and Weiss, because she had run away from home in at the end of Volume 4, and we see his manipulation, him trying to use her mother as a way to make her feel guilty, but she's got RWBY, Blake, and Yang there. And still, one of the greatest moments in this series happens when he says, "So these are the little friends that you threw everything away for." And Weiss says, "Not friends, family." And, really, it's a great moment for Weiss, because you see where she started in Volume 1 to now, seeing her teammates as her family, which, after all they've been through, that's supposed to be what a huntsman or huntress team is supposed to be, is a found family in a lot of ways. Because everyone in that lifestyle comes from so many different backgrounds. Some of them don't have any families anymore. So it was a great moment. Really, really great moment. Then, of course, we finally see the girls become official huntresses. They get their huntress license. They're no longer students. They are considered full-on huntresses within Atlas. Then, of course, we get probably one of the biggest memes that the fandom has ever enjoyed, and that was Blake and Yang taking a selfie together. Like, Bumblebee shippers, we were going crazy about it, but then the fandom took it and put them in any kind of situation you could of them taking a selfie together. It was pretty great. It was a pretty good time for the fandom. Like, that was one of the times where, like, of course, you had sticks in the mud who thought it was stupid, but it was one of those moments where, like content creators, fan artists, and just normal people who were using Photoshop just decided to have fun. I think I did one. I got Jess to cut Blake and Yang out so I could put them in the scene from Dragon Ball Z where Majin Buu used the masked the blast that he used to kill all the remaining humans on Earth with, and I put Blake and Yang like they were taking a selfie during it. That was fun. That was just a fun meme. But yeah, so then the next episode that had the fandom talking for two reasons was the day off. So it shows the girls in their dorm room, and we get the whole thing between Blake and Yang. So that had Bumblebee's shippers talking. But then the end of the episode, then later in the episode, of course, Nora. Friends, huh? Just friends. I still remember mine and Jess's reaction to that. But then, what happened later in that episode, even more, I was wearing this exact same shirt. The kiss between Ren and Nora. Renora finally kissing, becoming a thing. And I think me and Jess were just as happy for Renora. Well, I mean, yeah, we were more happier for Bumblebee. But yes, we were ecstatic. And I think I wore this same shirt in our reaction to the Bumblebee kiss. So whenever I wear this shirt in a reaction, expect somebody to kiss. But of course, that was all ruined by Tyrion, who pretty much committed mass murder at the election party for Robin. And it ended with Jacques winning the election because he cheated. Because, hey, it's a great idea to side with a scientist who was exiled from Atlas. Yeah, that was a great idea by Jacques. So, of course, like, it seemed like they were building a story of Penny taking the blame, because when the lights came back on, Tyrion was gone, and there's Penny with her swords drawn, and of course nobody saw it except Penny, who saw Tyrion actually attacking people, and then of course Ruby saw him before the attack happened, which of course Ruby fought Tyrion, so of course she knew that he was up to no good. But they really didn't go anywhere with that, really. You didn't have the people of Atlas asking for Penny to be taken apart or decommissioned or anything like that. Like, she was upset about it, but they wanted to get her back out so she could clear up her name and do what she was supposed to be, which was the protector of Atlas. Of course, we didn't get to see the Blake and Yang date, but we did see them have a talk that kind of talked about Adam in a little bit. Like, I always feel like they didn't really need to talk about it, because Yang knew why Blake left now. She knew it was because of Adam, so there was really no need for them to talk about that. But, like, they understand each other so well, there's no need. I know that's kind of a cheap argument for them not putting in more character interaction, but it is what it is. Then we have the pivotal moment of Blake and Yang not arresting Robin, filling her in on what is going on, because they trust. They actually, like, I don't know if trust is the right word, but they believe in what Robin stands for. Robin is just doing what she thinks is right. And of course, she's a Robin Hood character, so it's a steal from the rich to give to the poor. Morally, is it wrong? Technically, because you're stealing, but you're also giving it to the people who need it the most, from people who take it for granted, and do they really deserve it? It is what it is. We also, during this whole time learned that Atlas, like the wall around Atlas or mantle, is not very well taken care of. There's actually a big hole in it. at one point, and whenever they mention stuff like that, it's always going to come back. It is always definitely going to come back. And so, we get stuff like Watts turning off the heat for Mantle and stuff like that. Like, stuff that we knew was building to something way worse, but I wish it was touched on a little bit more. Have there have been a bigger reaction? But anyway, toward the... Oh man, I'm already 30 minutes in. I'm just on volume 7. Okay, so I'm going to have to skip around here a little bit. But I think the moment in volume 7 that really, like, you can't mention volume 7 without talking about this. So what happens is, there's a Grim invasion, because everything that Tyrion and Watts and all that has been causing has created a lot of negative emotions, and so of course the Grim are attracted. And during all this, they learn that Jacques cheated, and so he's arrested. So the Aesops, Team RWBY, Crow, all Clover, all of them go out into Mantle to protect the city, which at that time is ordered by Ironwood. So we're doing okay right now, but that is also when they decide they want to tell Ironwood the truth, and boy, could it not come at a worse time. So Oscar does tell him, that Salem cannot be killed. And he thanks Oscar for telling him and tells him, no more surprises. I don't think my heart can take it. And really, at that time, I was like, okay, Ironwood's not exactly taking it badly, So at that time, I was hoping things would be okay. But, yeah, it didn't. But, a lot happens. Some of it is so foggy to me because it's been a while since I've watched Volume 7 all the way through. But we got Ironwood taking care of Watts. We've got Team RWBY, the Aesops, and all them splitting off, taking care of different threats. And of course, at first, it's Crow, Clover, and Robin taking on Tyrion. And I forgot what happened. Oh yeah, that's right. I think they captured Tyrion, but then Tyrion caused a crash, and that knocked out Robin, but left Crow and Clover. And yes, I'm getting to that. So I'm just go ahead and say it. A lot of people were shipping Clover and Crow. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there was no evidence at all. But I could see both sides. I could see it being romantic, but I could also see it as, Crow finally finding a teammate that he could be around, because Clover's semblance would override Crow's semblance, so it wouldn't result in anything negative. But during all that, that is when, God, what all did happen? It's been so long since I've seen Volume 7. Well, eventually, this is when Ironwood decides to turn on Team RWBY and all them, puts them all on the wanted list, and Clover decides, instead of just fighting Tyrion, which really would have been the smart thing to do, if he really wanted to do his job, they should have taken out Tyrion, and then he could have concentrated on Crow. But this whole triple threat match started. And, Crow's trying to attack Tyrion, but then Clover would attack him. And, it ended up having this thing of, Crow helping Tyrion fight Clover. It's one of those moments. It's not a good one. It's not a good situation at all. And it results in Tyrion killing Clover with Crow's weapon. And boy, the fandom was not happy. Like, man, you had people talking about that for weeks. You had people dropping RWBY because of it. And I'm not saying, I don't, I'm not saying it was wrong of them to do. We always try to look at both sides of something. So I was shocked. I think Jess even cried a little bit. It was a very emotional death, and it was a very violent death. Like, between Clover and Adam, I think they both had a pretty awful, violent death. But then you have all the stuff. But after that, Cinder finds where the Winter Maiden is, and it's supposed to be Winter. That is who Ironwood has wanted to be the Winter Maiden this whole entire time, but it ends up becoming Penny. And before, it's so wild watching this because Cinder is literally like losing her mind because nothing is going right. And then Ruby and Weiss show up, and Ruby uses her silver eyes right away, which scares Cinder away. But then you have the heartbreak of Winter telling Weiss that she needs to run, or she's going to come after her. So yeah, Volume 7 started very upbeat in a lot of ways, but ended very darkly, because as the season ended, dark storm clouds start coming toward Atlas, and it's a giant Wellgrim, and on top of it is Salem. Salem has arrived in Atlas. And that was the end of Volume 7. And I don't remember, like, besides the whole Clover thing, I don't remember a lot of anything else happening between Volume 7 and 8. Now, going into 8, there was a lot of talk, because there was a lot of rumors about 8. I do remember that they said that Volume 8 was going to be the longest volume. I believe that's what they said, up to that date. Now, the episode length of didn't get exactly longer, but total runtime, Volume 8 is the longest one, I believe. And I think a lot of people had a problem with the runtime. I think a lot felt that it shouldn't have been this long. But it is what it is. Volume 8's a big volume story-wise, and it was so big that I believe, if I remember correctly, the Christmas break, because they always take a season break for Christmas. But I think the one for Volume 8 was longer. But, at this point, I'm just going to have to go over the big details because we're at 40 minutes. But, of course, the beginning. Team RWBY and Juniper split up because mostly it's a disagreement between Yang and RWBY, and it kind of has that whole united we stand, divided we fall kind of thing. But, I mean, they're trying to achieve the same thing. While RWBY's team infiltrate Atlas, Yang's team focuses on Mantle. In a way, it's kind of trying to... I think the fandom would have felt better about it if they had agreed on this 100%. But you could definitely tell that there was a lot of issues within the group. And of course, this is the volume where... That's another thing I gotta say. 7 and 8 did a lot with Ren and Nora, big time. Jean almost took a complete back seat in these two volumes because Ren and Nora had a ton of content. Them kissing, and then Ren being all business first and pleasure secondary. But then in Volume 8, you have them coming to an understanding. A lot of people saw it as them breaking up. And it wasn't that, it's just that they decided to slow down a little bit. Of course, you have Ren's semblance evolving, and you have more development with Blake and Yang's relationship. Once again, they were kind of paralleled with Ren and Nora when everyone reunited and how things went there. But one thing a lot of people were looking forward to in Volume 8 that was kind of hinted at was Cinder's backstory. And, of course, we all kind of knew that she was based off Cinderella, who had went bad. And I remember watching the episode, Cinder's episode, and like, don't get me wrong, Cinder is a villain. She is a straight up villain, and she needs to be stopped. She's done a lot of things that have caused a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. But man, I have to say, that episode made me sympathize with her. Because I've always said, evil is not born, it's created. And in Cinder's case, that was definitely the truth. Her story was the same as Cinderella. She was treated bad by a stepmother and stepdaughters, and she didn't have the little mice there to help her, and she didn't have a fairy godmother. There was a huntsman named Rhodes who showed sympathy to her and trained her, but when he should have stepped up and took her away, he decided not to. And then when she did away with the stepmother and the stepdaughters, instead of helping her, he said, if you left with me, you would just be running for the rest of your life. And so Cinder took care of him. Now, once again, does it justify her actions 100%? It's up to you. A lot of people think things differently. She was abused. She was tortured. Did they get what was coming to them? Should Rhodes had taken Cinder with him? Would things have been differently? How much of Cinder would have changed if she had been properly trained as a huntress and sent to one of the schools? But once again, evil is created. It's not born. It's the same way with Salem. Salem was not the way she is now. She was not born that way. She kind of created herself in a way. But yeah, there's always the thought of the bad seed born from evil and stuff like that. But I think it's created. I think it is always molded. So Volume 8, toward its end, a lot of things seem like they're coming together. The girls use the artifact, or what I'm talking about. And what was his name? Ambrosius, I believe it was called. I swear, I could have sworn the first time I heard his voice, I thought it was Markiplier voicing him. The guy who is Ambrosius sounds exactly like Markiplier. And Mark was working with Rooster Teeth around that era, so a lot of us were kind of hoping that it was him, but I don't think it was. So they create a space so the people from Mantle and Atlas can use it. It's a crossroads, pretty much, to leave Atlas and Mantle and go to Vacuo. Because the girls know that Vale is not safe, Mistral is not safe, Vacuo is really the only other place they can go. But sadly, on the other side, Cinder and Neo use Jin, and they learn all about what's going on. So and they also, RWBY and the others use that time to turn Penny, who had been almost reprogrammed by Watts, out of her robot body and finally into a human, which in its way fulfills the story of Pinocchio, who Penny is based off of. So we all know what happens. Everything is going great. And we always know in RWBY, when everything is going great, the worst it's going to be when things go bad. And Cinder and Neo attack. Of course, Neo is after RWBY because she believes RWBY killed Roman, which we all know did not happen. He was Grim food. But Cinder has fueled that hatred. And so they attack. Several NPCs fall off and are presumed dead because they didn't show up in the Ever After. And it's funny. The moment Ambrosius said, "Do not fall," and then you see the opening of Volume 8, we knew from the very beginning that Team RWBY were going to fall. They were going to fall into this abyss or whatever it was, and that was going to be the story of Volume 9. But I don't think people were ready for it to happen because Neo attacks, Yang sees she's going for RWBY, Yang takes the attack, and Yang is the first to fall. Now, in the commentary for Volume 8, they said that they had talked about profusely who was going to fall first, and they chose Yang because they felt like Yang is kind of the heart of the group. She brings everyone together in a way, and that Volume 8 had kind of been her volume. So that was their kind of way of sending off Yang for Volume 8, was to have her be the first one to fall. Of course, you had people jumping the gun, claiming that Yang was dead, because we had to wait a whole other week until we see the rest of Team RWBY fall into the Ever After. And, everybody was sad. I was actually happy because of Blake's reaction. That told me. The way Blake reacted, that when Bumblebee reunited, that might be when the kiss happens, because she thought Yang was dead. So I was personally okay with Yang being the first to fall. But I knew all of them were going to fall. Yang's my favorite character, so was I bummed? Yes, but I didn't think she was dead. So the next week, after the fandoms lose their mind, we get that episode. I don't remember if it was that episode or the one after that, where we got a warning at the end of the episode saying, "Hey, there's some messed up stuff in this," and I think they gave the phone number for the you-know-what hotline. So we were like, oh no. Oh, what's gonna happen? And so if I remember, okay. RWBY and Blake then fall, along with Neo, and that was one of the biggest surprises. I did not think Neo was going to fall. That was a huge surprise. And then it's just Weiss, Penny, and Jean against Cinder, because everyone else has went to Vacuo, but they didn't clarify how the door works. So once they went into Vacuo, it was one way. They couldn't come back, because we see Nora on the other side banging it, trying to get into the other way, because as soon as they get into Vacuo, they're met with a huge sandstorm and Grim. And oh yeah, Emerald changed sides. She's now a good guy, like everyone knew she would that would happen. And I think before what happens, one of the most heartbreaking things is seeing Weiss using Gamble's Shroud to shoot at Cinder, and Weiss has got tears in her eyes because she thinks RWBY, Blake, and Yang are all gone. And then, of course, oh man, we have the second death of Penny that Jean assisted in. And I know a lot of people hate Jean. I know Jean gets a lot of hate. But man, thinking in real life perspectives, I could not imagine how that would feel. And we all know, Penny's human now, so that's it. That's it. And then we have the scene of her handing the power to Winter, and it's just... Penny saying she won't be gone, and... I can't listen to Friend to this day without crying, because it's such a heartbreaking story, because all Penny wanted was a friend. And she found that in RWBY. And the fact that this happened after RWBY had fallen, and RWBY had no idea for the longest time. And Penny is such a lovable character. And I don't think there has been any moment in this show that's made me cry from sadness like that. But that's one of the great things about this show. Like, if you really get invested in it and just enjoy it, it will really, really break your heart in a lot of ways. It'll make you happy. It'll make you angry. It's made plenty of people angry, but it'll make you sad as well. And to this day, I can't watch Volume 8 without dreading that scene. And I can't listen to Friend either, because it's heartbreaking. Very, very heartbreaking. But it results in Winter getting the Winter Maiden powers, fighting Cinder, and I noticed... Hello, Noelle. Hope you're having a good night. Welcome to the stream. One thing I noticed about the fight between Winter and Cinder, is it me, or does it seem like whenever Cinder is going against fighters who are maybe a bit more experienced than her, she starts losing big time? Like, I can't remember the full fight perfectly in my head, but I really think if that fight had continued, Winter could have possibly bested her. Because, Winter has got military training. She's been doing this for a while. I don't know much of the age difference between Cinder and Winter, but, look at the fight between Cinder and Raven. Raven pretty much owned her in Volume 5. So it just seems like when she actually has to go up against an opponent who is a maiden as well, and has more fighting experience than her, you kind of see her stock drop a little bit. But despite that, we get the signal that Salem is back alive, because earlier in the volume she was put out of commission thanks to a bomb that Oz pretty much set off using the power he had stored, and it also resulted in the death of Hazel, who had turned on Salem. That Salem is back alive because, she's like Mario. She always comes back. And Weiss falls. And then another big surprise. I thought Neo falling was a big surprise. Jean falls. And it's like, what's Jean's role going to be at that time? So the volume ends with everyone thinking that Jean and Team RWBY are dead. And Atlas falls and is swallowed up by the ocean, by water, and Atlas becomes the lost city of Atlantis. And then it ends with a cliffhanger of Ruby's scythe, Crescent Rose, on a beach where a very huge tree is. So, of course, the wait for Volume 9 was very tumultuous, because people had all these theories of what Volume 9 was going to be about. Where was Crescent Rose at the end of it? There were already talks of a Wonderland-like world. There was talk about the giant tree being like the life tree. I thought this myself, that it was based off Yggdrasil, the world tree in Norse mythology. But then there was also... This is where the rumblings about Rooster Teeth possibly being in trouble started. Now, of course, we had heard about how employees had been treated by upper management, and that caused a lot of backlash. Boycotts were called. There were content creators who said they were no longer going to cover RWBY because of it. There was voice actors and actresses who said that they were not coming back until these things were handled. Though, if I remember correctly, it was mostly, like I said, on the corporate end of Rooster Teeth. As far as RWBY goes, no, like I believe they went out of their way to say RWBY is not at fault. Everyone who works on RWBY are amazing. This is a higher up problem. Of course, Rooster Teeth put out a statement saying that these things were going to be corrected. But sadly, Rooster Teeth wouldn't exist long enough for us to really see if those changes really took effect. Because a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen with Volume 9. Because I can't remember how long it took for Volume 9 to be announced to be greenlit. But then we got the announcement that it was going to be exclusively for 1 year on Crunchyroll, instead of going to Rooster Teeth's website, which confused a lot of people, but it's an exclusivity deal. That stuff kind of happens if you want to make a deal with someone. 9 times out of 10, they'll ask for it exclusively. But yeah, I remember a lot of people were clamoring for a trailer of Volume 9. And before that, everybody was theorizing, oh, it's going to be the beach episode, because that's all we knew was that a beach and a giant tree. That was it. And then we finally got the trailer, which what this is from, and learned that, no, it's not just a beach. And, since RWBY is steeped in fairy tales, it was Team RWBY in Wonderland, pretty much. And the moment we saw the cat, we were like, that is definitely the Cheshire Cat. Like, this is definitely Wonderland, So, I remember the Reactor World. We were kind of worried it being on Crunchyroll, because we were like, are we going to be able to do reactions? And even to this day, now that Viz owns them, I'm like, are we going to be able to still react to RWBY now that Viz owns it? But that was quickly taken care of. But we had already been told before Volume 9 started airing that Volume 10 had not been greenlit, yet they had already started writing it. So we really went into Volume 9 with a lot of uncertainty. And like, they were pushing people, please, if you're going to watch Volume 9, watch it on Crunchyroll. So Volume 9 starts, great opening, great visuals for the opening. They got a little creative with the logo, with the little leaves and stuff like that. But another thing that worried a lot of people about Volume 9 is that it was a shorter volume. It had fewer episodes than any other volume. And a bummer, yes, but it was understandable for at the time. But if you watch Volume 9 and look at the backgrounds, or like the scene where Blake says, I think we're in the ever after, and the camera spins around the landscape, there are so many beautiful visuals in Volume 9. It is definitely a treat for the eyes. But Team RWBY, they gather back up very quickly. RWBY meets Little, our new favorite little friend in the RWBY world. Blake and Weiss find each other and meet vines, and then meet a bunch of little mice that capture them. Of course, RWBY and Little save them, but the one that we're still missing is Yang. Like, it really seems like they were really wanting to, like, save Yang for last. She was the first to fall. She was the last to join back up. But at least it was in the same episode, because I think after Volumes 4 and 5, people are tired of Team RWBY being separated. But of course, we see the Jabberwock for the first time. If you've never listened to the song Jabberwocky, give that a listen. Kalu Calais. But for Just Day, Kalu Calais. But we get the reunion. we get the cute little thing between RWBY and Yang, you know, if you didn't think we would come for you, you must have forgot who raised me. Then, of course, we have the love tackle by Blake on Yang. We get a little teaser of Worthy in the background during this little reunion. And then, you know, the next few episodes is full of Weiss struggling with the thought that they're in the ever after. We learn very quickly that RWBY is going through some very, very difficult things inside her own head. And Blake and Yang are flirting. That's really the first few episodes. Like, really, we go to the auction, which was pure chaos, and then we went to the Red Prince's castle, which was also chaos, but had some of the coolest fighting animations in it, with Weiss, Blake, and Yang getting shrunk and playing that little chess game. Weiss with the wings and all that. Yang's little thumb to the nose, and Blake blushing because Yang's cheering her on and stuff like that. Really, really good stuff. I still love the auction where Blake's panicking, Yang's running away like a maniac, going, "I got it," because she got her arm back, and Weiss just walking out like she's done with this stuff, like she's not losing her cool whatsoever. Then we had the stuff with the herbalist, I believe his name was, which was pretty much the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland, and we had that great scene of the girls meeting their past selves, where Weiss, Blake, and Yang know who they are, they shed away being their past selves, but RWBY can't face her past. And I said at the beginning of Volume 9, when it first started airing, that these characters are going to go through some character development in this volume, because they promised us more character interactions in Volume 9. Because these characters need to be who they need to be by the end of the series to defeat Salem. So now we've also got to get Weiss, Blake, and Yang back from being shrunk, because they're still shrunk. So we have to make this very, very interesting parfait. And of course the Jabberwock attacks at this point, which we've learned since before then that that Neo has killed it and is now duplicating it, and the Ever After is having a very unique effect on Neo's semblance. It's making her stronger. It's almost like the Ever After was made for someone like Neo. So they get big again, and they fight off the Jabberwock. But during the fight, the fabled Rusted Knight shows up, and it's very obvious who it is. Like, come on, did any of us not think it was him? And it is Jean, but a very older Jean. And we learn in the very next episode that Jean has been there for a long time, because he decided to mess with some clock fruit, and it took him into the past. And so he was there when Alex, aka Alice, came to Wonderland and started the whole story of the girl who fell through the sky. What was it? Girl who fell through the world? I think. Anyway, and he was the Rusted Knight from the story he remembered, but in a way, he was the origin of the... Like, it's kind of a time paradox, and it's like that. But then we get Weiss, who apparently likes more mature men, and a Jean that is way more gruff, way more serious. It's like the grizzled old veteran with the young kids in a way. Because, you know, in Japanese RPGs, you always have party members, and there's always one gruff old man who's seen it all, and he's grumpy, and he's got to teach these kids a thing or two about life while they're on their journey. And then the thunderstorm happens. And I proceed to lose my shit because, oh my God, Bumblebee finally kisses and finally says I love you after 10 years of a slow burn romance. And if you ever want to see a grown man cry and speak gibberish while his wife gives him a side eye, like, are you okay, while she's crying herself, go watch that reaction. It's one of our most watched videos. And, like, even to this day, like, it's been what? Almost 2 years since that episode aired, and I still can't believe it happened. I shipped that ship since Volume 1. I have defended that ship. I have fought for that ship. I have fought with others on the internet over that ship for years. And to be vindicated, to be told that it was always planned, to be told that Barbara and Aaron knew since before RWBY started and had to keep it secret that whole time. I was just... It was like that moment in movies when the room darkens and a light shines from above and you hear the hallelujah music. That's what it was. Hey, Paris. Good to see you. So, yes. And, like, seeing the reaction. Of course, there was the boo-hoo, also mad and mad and all that it's Cannan. But to see people pick up, like, the side that they want to watch RWBY because of after what happened with Blake and Yang's confession. Like, wow, I never watched this show before. I'm going to watch it now. It brought so many new fans to RWBY. And that's a good thing. You want that to happen. You want that success. And there are people who were mad about it because they didn't want Bumblebee to be canon, and they didn't want, for some reason, people to watch it because of a same-sex couple. You know? I don't understand that entitled way of thinking. I will never understand it, and I don't want to even try to understand it because it's just not a correct way to think. Okay? It's not. But you know, they brought us up with that to bring us right down. Next episode, we meet the paper pleasers and Jean showing some form of psychotic that I have never seen in my life. No, I wouldn't say psychotic, but definitely got used to being by himself. Let's just say that. It was like Wilson in Castaway, in a way. Like, Jean was a very good Tom Hanks in this moment. But then Neo attacks with the Jabberwockies. We see some great fighting, especially some great fighting choreography with Blake and Yang. But it leads to the paper pleasers flooding the village so that they can ascend. Jean having a meltdown, briefly bringing up what happened with Penny, and then RWBY blowing up on everybody, her and Jean having a very intense talk, and RWBY just leaving. I had originally planned to do a video talking about the psychology of RWBY in Volume 9, but what happened in the next episode affected so many people that I decided to put it on hold, and it's still on hold. I might do that video at some point. But RWBY alone pretty much walks right in to Neo's trap. And at first, it was kind of cool to see Roman again, to see Pyrrha again in the new engine and all that. That was great until they started all beating up RWBY, blaming her for everything that had happened, and RWBY pretty much saying she didn't want to be her anymore. And that is when the cat finally shows their true colors and tries to pretty much possess RWBY, but is stopped. And then as soon as Blake, Yang, Weiss, and Jean all show up to help RWBY, she drinks the tea and ascends. And of course, Neo also kills Little, which I've still not forgiven her to this day, because the little mouse didn't do anything. Like, seriously, you're gonna be that type of person? Like, really? You don't hurt animals, okay? You just don't do it. So yeah, that episode affected a lot of people, to the point where, like, I know there's a family that reacts to RWBY, and like there was a lot of people trying to warn them, hey, your kids might not need to see what happens. It was a very hard episode to sit through. But as someone who doesn't mind darker content, I feel like sometimes in a story that needs to happen because you need something. A lot of problems with RWBY that a lot of people say that it has is that there's a sense of no urgency. There's a sense of, oh, the Grimm are just fodder, you know. So I think like you had to go a really dark route to really get across to the viewer that yes, this is a serious thing that's going on. Now, a lot of people felt like that that you know, Weiss and the others seemed a little bit too like they recovered pretty fastly, but they knew that RWBY wasn't dead, and they knew they would find her at the tree. So that's where they go. Well, the tree finds them. And also, while they're doing that, we are back with RWBY, and she is pretty much on this little, I say quest, but it's not like she goes on a journey, but she is on this little journey with herself to decide who she is. And her mother's weapon is there. And so a lot of people were thinking, is RWBY going to come back and she's going to be like a fusion of her and Summer? What's going to happen? But Weiss, Blake, Yang, and John find RWBY, and she's encased in the tree, of course. And they also find the cat, who has possessed Neo at this point, because Neo no longer has anything to live for pretty much at this point. And they're trying to escape into Remnant, but Neo has no connection to Remnant anymore. There's nothing there for her. So the cat can't get through. So they decide to try and stop the cat. And of course, with the final boss of an anime series, the cat is proving a little bit too much for them to handle on their own. Meanwhile, with the help of the blacksmith, RWBY decides her herself is enough. She chooses her. She chooses Crescent Rose, and RWBY gets the awesome shonen main protagonist return. It's one of the best scenes ever in RWBY. And the cat, thinking that RWBY's going to be a easy target again, attacks RWBY, but RWBY is back. She attacks back, and she is back to how she was. Ass-kicking monster hunter. And the rest of Team RWBY join in with her, and they kick the cat's ass. Like, it's so cool. And like this one part where RWBY, Blake, and Yang are zooming around. It's like a fight out of Dragon Ball Z. It's so amazing. And they do the whole knock the cat down to the ground. The cat shrinks back to their normal self and is eventually killed and eaten by the Jabberwocker. And I still don't know if the rules with the Jabberwocker still apply when it's illusions created by Neo. Because it's Neo that sicked them on to the cat. Does it still count as not being able to ascend or come back? Because they're technically illusions. But in the end, Neo decides to let go of Roman, and she chooses to ascend. Will Neo come back later as a good character? It's hard to say. It's kind of hinting that way, but we don't know for sure yet. I think it's a possibility because Neo is a fan favorite, so I could definitely see it happening. There was kind of an understanding between her and Team RWBY at the end because she bows out to them. So we'll see. So with that, and after a very tearful goodbye to the ascended Little, who is now going by Somewhat, and Juniper, I tear up during that scene as well. Jean and the girls go through the door, and that's where they meet the blacksmith, who is pretty much a personification of the tree. And so that's where you learn that the brothers, the god of dark and light, are the ones who created the Ever After. But then once they, technically they got bored and left and went and created Remnant. Well, they created the cat, and the cat had a duty to do, but when they left, the cat just got bitter and straight off the path, and that's how they ended up the way they did. But the blacksmith opens up a portal, and Ruby asks, "Where will this take us?" And the blacksmith says, "Not where, but when you are needed most." Ruby, the others step through. Ruby looks back and thanks the blacksmith, steps on through, and Team Ruby and John find themselves in Vacuo, just outside the city, and we see that the message from Volume 8 worked. The world has converged in Vacuo to try and fight off Salem. And that is where Volume 8 ends. We didn't get an after-credit scene. Now, of course, we got an epilogue that had not been finished. It had to be cut later. And it shows a lot more. It shows things are not going well in Vacuo. Everyone thinks that Team Ruby and John are dead. There's a mural of Ruby that says, "Remember her message." They literally, got the world to fight back. And then at the very end, Raven brings Team Ruby and John back to everyone. So that's one thing we know for sure. Raven is back with everyone. I always said at the end of 5, when she actually shed tears and apologized to Yang, and then we got that little teaser of her going back to Tai for some reason, that was the beginning of Raven's redemption arc. And since she is there with them in Vacuo, she's no longer running. I think that's a sign that maybe we might get some kind of, things may never be good between Yang and Raven, but maybe there's a way to at least make things better in case the worst happens. Now, after Volume 9, which was very highly rated by the fandom, called probably the best volume in the series, and after we got more books, more manga, a new video game called RWBY Arrowfell, which took place during the events of Volume 7, 2 movie crossovers with the Justice League, sadly, WB shuts down Rooster Teeth. I'm sorry, I love the DC universe, and Batman is my favorite superhero, but I will probably never buy anything from WB ever again. That company is literally canceling and shutting down anything they can to save a buck. They've run themselves into the ground. They've got no one to blame but themselves, and they're costing people their jobs. So it was a very sad time. Very sad time. Luckily, WB wasn't going to be like some companies and just hold the properties hostage. They wanted to sell RWBY. Now, no matter what one side of Reddit will tell you, RWBY is a popular series. Anybody would be happy to own it. So that's when the talk started of who is going to buy RWBY. And there was talks of maybe Crunchyroll would buy it. I heard so many suggestions. The only one I did not see a lot of people name were the ones who ended up buying it. Now, of course, a good few months went by, but Carrie assured everybody that there was progress. They were talking with people who were very interested in continuing the series, but we wouldn't find out a little bit later until I think it was Anime Expo, that Viz Media had bought RWBY. Now, it really made sense for it to be Viz Media, because Viz is the ones that published all the mangas of RWBY, I believe. I think it was all of them. They're also the ones that put out the World Compendium book. So I wasn't that shocked that it was Viz. I was happy. I was very happy. And what we got with that was a teaser image of some art of RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang in Vacuo in new outfits. Pretty much a small little teaser for Volume 10. Now, we've not really heard anything else since then, but you guys have got to remember, Viz Media is not an animation company. They are a manga translator and distributor. The anime that they do have, they outsource to other companies to animate, or they just put it out they send it for other companies to dub it, and then. So I don't know if Viz has ever animated their own animated series. So one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to outsource it to another studio to animate it and then put it out, or who knows, Viz might create their own animation department. I don't know. I don't know if they would do that just for RWBY, but we'll see. We do know that Carrie is still involved, and other members of RWBY may also be involved, because Volume 10 is more than likely already written. It's just got to be animated, voiced, and finished, and all that. Viz has said multiple times that they want to do it right by the fans, so they're asking for more time. One of the videos that Lindsay, Kara, Aaron, and Barbara did for the holidays said that, hey, just be patient. You guys are going to be very, very happy when we do have it to announce. So at this point, we're just playing the waiting game. I know Viz Media has already released some RWBY merch, so that's something. But we're just going to have to see where it goes. There's a lot of people who think Volume 10 is going to be the final volume. I'm sorry. They're not going to get everything done in one volume. I'm hoping we at least get 3 more volumes for Vacuo, and then maybe a final volume for the final battle. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to end it there because I've already went long enough as it is. So yeah, this was covering volumes 7 through 9 and how, the fandom reacted and what was going on in the fandom at that time. Sadly, this one ends on a little bit of a sour note because it was the end of Rooster Teeth, sadly. But at least RWBY now has a new home, and a lot of the people that worked on RWBY are going to be still around when Viz does announce something. So the next one I do of these will be part 4, which will be the end for right now. And that'll be whenever we finally get some huge news on Volume 10. And I'm sure Jess will join me for that one. But thank you all for taking this ride with me tonight. I know it's late. It's almost midnight. But I enjoy doing these. I enjoy doing streams where it's just me talking. It's a little bit more easier to focus than playing a game and trying to talk at the same time. But I will be streaming tomorrow. I don't know when, because like I said, my new webcam and my new microphone is supposed to arrive tomorrow. So it depends on what time of day those arrive. I would like to use them tomorrow, but if it looks like they're not going to get here on time, I will just do with the current setup. And then sometime Sunday, I will do something with the new equipment, hopefully. But I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, please. We are trying our best to hit 1,000 soon. Like, I really, really want to hit 1,000 before we concentrate on any other milestones. But we're going to be investing in some new editing software soon. So I'm going to ask Jess to please put more editing into the videos. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and all that good stuff. Like I said, new stream tomorrow. I'll be playing Mass Effect because that's what won the poll. And Sunday, I don't know what I'm doing yet. We'll have to see. But just guys, remember that me and Jess love you all very, very much. Please stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you in the next one.